Hi, folks. With Tassus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio, audio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about women, girl bosses, women in position of authority, and CEOs, and all that sort of stuff, C-level executives. Now, I saw a video about a woman CEO, very, very highly paid, very prestigious role. She was obviously given the role through affirmative action, but she was given the role as CEO, and there's been a series of very public disasters in this organisation. So she was being questioned by a Senate or parliamentary committee. And from the first question, she just started to cry, and she needed a box of Kleenex there to, wipe her eyes and blow her nose and all this sort of stuff. And her answers were, and just boo-hooing all the time. And they couldn't really get a whole lot of sense out of her. Now, when her male colleagues were questioned, they very calmly and quietly said their piece, and whether you think it's accurate or not, but there was no crying and boo-hooing and pleading, I'm only a little helpless, little tiny, little girly. I'm only a little girl. You have to be. So there was none of that, and so you have to ask, well, how did this woman become CEO? She has no credentials. She's got no achievements or accomplishments. There's nothing that would suggest she should have got the role, but got the role. She didn't. She reveled in it, appearing in very soft interviews where people would, the interviewer, very left-leaning channels, they're very much promoting equity and social inclusion and DEI and so on. She, in turn, was saying was carrying on, when she was being in these easy softball interviews, she was all the black lesbians she was hiring, and even got to the point where they were getting rid of straight white males and replacing with brown people. And she was touting this as a huge accomplishment of her CEO-ship and so on. But the minute she's held accountable, she starts to cry and boo-hoo like a little schoolgirl. Now, is this unusual? Now, I've spent sort of more time in the upper reaches and echelons of business than some, so I've got some sort of insight into this, and I'll add that insight to this video. Some years ago, this is a government quango, it's a private company, but it's in effect a government quango because of all the government protections against competition that it has. So it, one of the more senior people, she'd have been one of the top, and bear in mind, this outfit's got like 20,000 employees. She'd be one of the top 10 most senior employees, so being paid very handsomely, as you can imagine. She's in the top 1 in 1,000 income earners in the country, so she's at a very, very elite level of income, and has a lifestyle to match and all sorts of trappings. Her office, not only does it overlook the water, but it's bigger than most apartments. And but again, we're talking about someone outrageously underqualified for the role. She's got a nice smile, but so we're at a meeting some years ago, and some of us were there, and she's there, and she's trying to get something. She's making some sort of a bullshit speech that isn't making any sense about how if they apply hiring processes in a certain way, they can actually eliminate straight white males. But it has to be done without people knowing it's being done, because then there might be pushback. And so that's the path she's going down. And some of the people there aren't particularly happy with, the way she's going about this. So she demands that they get on board, and she starts stamping her foot. Like when she doesn't get around, while she's all big and tough and she's waving her hands around like, I'm in charge here, I'm the morally superior one. And she's talking to everybody, including us, me and my colleagues, talking to us like we're little children. And that's the way she sort of asserts her authority. You're the little child. I'm the all-knowing parent, and you have to do what I say. And it's it's a game that I've seen. It's very, very female, very over over-promoted, underqualified female. It's very much how they default to this school, teacher in a kindergarten type methodology of dealing with other people. They cannot deal with other people as being professionals. They just cannot do it. So anyway, she wasn't getting the traction she thought she was deserving or should get or wanted. So she told everybody that if they didn't do what she wanted, she would start to cry. Seriously, he's one of the top executives of this company, paid megabucks, and if the people around her don't do what they want, she threatens to cry. I will cry if you don't do what I want. And now I'd seen sort of various things at a lower level, and had dealt with various people at a lower level, women at a lower level, but I'd never seen someone that senior who's been promoted to that level, who's on that sort of salary, behaving like a fucking 2-year-old. So, I kept quiet, I didn't say anything, but I observed this. And now, as affirmative action sort of spread and it became popular, now we've got to have more women in management, then they were putting these women in, but they weren't the credentialed women. I don't know how many credentialed women there would have been around. I mean, maybe not very many, but why were they putting these women in executive management positions? Is it precisely because they were irrelevant? And what was I've noticed the most corrupt people tend to want women in management positions, and I don't know. For example, that Robert Maxwell guy from the big media mogul in the UK. One of the first things he did when he took over newspapers was appoint women in senior management roles, or appoint gay soy boy men into the roles. He didn't want anyone to, because everything was done sort of by at his whim and arbitrary order, seat of the pants stuff. So he didn't want anyone that might sort of push back on that, and so he wanted a very compliant bunch of people around him. Women were his go-to in a lot of cases. He didn't feel threatened by women. But nonetheless, I've been in organisations where the CEO would suddenly have this idea that, we've got to have more women, and they wanted to have it in a push button basis. I want more women. Push a button, flick a switch, and make these women just magically appear, and which demonstrates the quality of the CEOs that would think that way. But nonetheless, the first organisation I was with where the CEO had this "let's flood the place with women," they hit all, in order to achieve it, all they did was just lower standards. The standards that would have applied to a straight white male were just thrown out the window, and would just appoint women to these roles. And it was just ridiculous. It was sad to watch, really. Now, I forecast at the time that this was not going to go well, and that fine, if you want to put women in, or anyone in, it doesn't matter, but you maintain the standards. The argument that would come back, well, if we maintain the standards, then we can't get any women into these roles. Well, then why would you want women in these roles if you have to lower? The only way you can achieve it is to lower standards. So, it's because of women's intuition or something. No, don't give me that fucking bullshit. Now, in the first instance where I came across this, I'd been stuck in the what they called the personnel department back in the day, where there were various cadet trainees in this, it's like big multinational company, various cadet trainees, and they had to do practical tests and exams and so on, all very, very serious back in the day. I don't know if they even do this sort of stuff still. But so the guy doing it was like on long service leave or something like that. So they stuck me in there for, I don't know, a little while, and all part of my training is, which was quite good training, I guess, in the overall scheme of things. But so my job was to look after the trainees. Now, they were coming up for I think there was 2 tests a year or something like that. So I was, one of the big chiefs came in and said, "Look, Billy Bob, we've got a number of female trainees, and I want you to make sure they all pass. We want 100% pass rate among the female trainees." So, I looked quizzically at him. What do you mean? If they fail, they fail, don't they? No. You have to give them every chance to succeed. So I thought, well, that's what the boss says. But what about the men? Oh no, you can be as tough on them as if they fail, they failed, but just don't fail any women. So, oh, okay, if that's what you want. So anyway, when the papers, like, they had to write essays about, how would you solve this problem, that sort of stuff, and other things, answer direct questions. So the papers came in. All the boys, all the men handed in their papers, but a couple of the girls did, but nearly all of them, majority of them, didn't even hand it in, let alone hand in. Now the ones that did hand it in, it was just you couldn't do anything with it. It was, the quality of the work was so bad that you'd flunk it. You wouldn't even give them 1%, for the work. It was of such poor quality, clearly thrown together and very half-assed, and very little thought being put into it. So I thought, well, gee, what are we going to do here? So I actually failed the ones that didn't hand in their paper, like they didn't hand in anything at all. And very reluctantly, I passed no, I didn't pass them. I said to the girls, the women that handed in the poor quality work, I said, look, so I gave it the red pencil. This is the stuff you've missed out. So I gave it back to them, said, look, I'll give you the weekend to do it, but you need to hand in better quality work than this. This is all these female trainees, okay? So I failed the ones that didn't hand in their paper. And then I had a very red-faced, very irate boss coming around saying, I told you to pass them, you little punk. And so I said, well, they didn't even hand in their paper at all. I mean, I had nothing I could grade or mark. They gave me nothing. And when I asked them about it, they said, too bad, didn't have time, shrugged their shoulders. I don't care. I told you to pass them. And so, that was my first brush with affirmative action, and I would have been, I don't know, early 20s, I suppose. And again, we're looking at this lowering the standards. But standards weren't lowered for everybody. The straight white men still had to pass, but just not the women. You just had to pass all the women. So I was glad to get out of that position, because the dishonesty that you had to employ in order to give but in the end, the senior management didn't care. They didn't care if the quality was low. They just wanted the outcome, like they were. And this is a commercial enterprise, by the way. It's not like it was a public service body where you could go, on, screw it, there's no performance needed. And so that was my first brush with it. But as I moved up the sort of the executive value and became a general manager and a vice president and executive, all that sort of stuff, and at the same time as the political correctness wokeism was starting to gather momentum, I had a lot of these things. So when it came to sitting down doing the annual evaluation, women were always insanely men. I mean, not that anyone likes these, they don't, but the women were insanely nervous and would try and create some sort of conflict at the meeting, so they could then say, you're doing this because you don't like me. So they would deliberately set out to create a conflict situation in order to specifically to avoid the responsibility. So they would come in here bristling with anxiety and so on. But rather than deal with the issues, well, Billie Jean, you've been coming in late, or this or that, or so and so and so and so. You have an unusual amount of sick days off, and your team has a very low performance rate. This sort of thing. Going through the facts. They would be almost hysterical with terror over. You can't use facts. Well, why don't you like me? Well, why don't you look? Give me a good evaluation. Give me a paragraph because you like me. Don't look at my performance. Don't look at the facts. Look at the ideology and why must you hold me to a high standard? And if you hold me to a high standard, if you make me accountable, it's because you hate me. That's the only reason. So once they would sort of be satisfied, well, gee, Billy Bob's gonna sort of grade me as he would anyone else, like a guy. Wow, I've got no leeway. There's no wiggle room for me here. Now, remember, this is a woman who's been over promoted. The CEO is insisting that she has the job of, the marketing director, for example, and insisting she has that job, even though she's fucking useless. Never accomplished anything in marketing, and being paid handsomely, by the way. So I'm grading her as I would anyone else. And because she's over promoted, underqualified, the grading is reflecting that. But these women, and they all seem to almost like they're running to the same script. They all want to have they all try and create a conflict. Oh, well, what did you say? You're just saying that because you're a misogynist. That's what, and they all go down the same fucking path. You're a Nazi, and you can see where the public dialogue on social media comes from. It comes from these sort of people. So they are absolutely terrified of accountability. And so, I try and sort of talk it through with them and say, look, if you're that terrified of accountability, why do you want this job, which puts you right in the crosshairs of accountability? Why not take some easier job? Oh, but I want the prestige and I want the money and I want to be able to brag when I go to parties and, hey, I'm the marketing director. I want all those trappings. I want the same trappings and things that a hardworking, responsibility taking man would have. But I don't want to have to take the responsibility or the accountability. I want all the benefits, but none of the responsibility. Well, gee, it's sort of not how it works. Well, if you like me enough, then it would work. But if you don't do it, it means you hate me, and it means you're Hitler. And they didn't say Hitler, but that was the sort of thing they tried to say, that you're only doing this because you hate me. And no, I'm doing this because you're not doing your job. So this was a constant thing, and for the most part, I found women would run 100 miles an hour away from any, if it looked like accountability and responsibility was going to get put on them, they would dive under the desk and duck for cover and so on, rather than take the responsibility. But men didn't behave. Not that some men didn't duck the responsibility. They did. So it wasn't like it was 100% perfect with men. But it was rare in my certainly my experience. It was rare when straight white men would avoid responsibility. If it was Indians or minorities, would they avoid responsibility? Absolutely, and lots of them. Very few of them would take responsibility. But if it's straight white males, most of them would. And it just so happens that straight white males are seen as the biggest obstacle to the globalist project. I wonder if there's a coincidence in there somewhere. It's beyond me. So in regard to the women there, the amount of women that certainly that came into my office and would start to cry and this sort of thing, and would say, "Oh, I've had trouble with my boyfriend or my mother or this or that." Family issues. My sister said this, and my brother called me an asshole, and then said, "Okay, that's bad. I'm sympathetic, and really, and you sort that out in your own time. But right now, you're being paid handsomely to be the marketing director in a commercial business. That's your focus while you're at work. If you want to take a couple of days off to deal with something, and go, then talk to me about that." But that you've got problems with your sister or your brother or this or that or the boyfriend or something, it's not relevant here. Now, I've had men come in and say that they're having all sorts of problems, but they come to, here's the problem, I'm going to solve it, and so by tomorrow it'll be solved. Whereas with the women, they say, well, it'll be an ongoing problem, and I need to use this as an excuse, not only tomorrow, but the next day and next week and next month and next year. So there are always these ongoing problems that always excuse them. Now, when I looked at the amount of, this is female staff to male staff, the amount of time off that women were taking, sick leave. So say men were taking an average, for example, taking an average of 2 days a year sick leave. Women were taking an average of 16 days a year sick leave. Now, these are women without children. These are women who, they haven't got any physical handicaps or anything. Why are they taking that much time off? Why do they think they're entitled to that much time off? Why do they seem to have men, for men, they have no relatives that are dying. For women, that there's one woman I looked at where she took like 20 days off in a year because the same relative was dying, and no one in human resources picked that up. I picked this. Why is this woman taking 20 days off because her grandfather has died on 20 separate occasions over the year? Can anyone die and come back to life and die again that often? Is that even possible? But there was also girly cabals would operate in these companies where they would look out for each other and support each other and conceal information that may be injurious to one of the sisterhood. And I noticed that as well. As more women came in, they were more inclined to do that. And they would form little networks, and they would sort of black band certain men that they didn't like and thought they had the right to do it. So there was in one company, there was a salesman that the women's cabal, the girly sisterhood cabal didn't like. And so they were using all these methods to gang up on the guy. So if he wanted to send out, dispatch goods to one, this is a sales guy, dispatch goods to one of his customers, or he put in an expense claim, then they would drop the expense claim down the back of the filing cabinets when he inquired about it. Oh, I don't know. And when dispatching the goods, they would make sure that his dispatch request fell down the back of the filing cabinet and went to the bottom of the pile or these sorts of things, so that he'd promise it to his customer the next day, and the customer would call up, well, where's my stuff? And he's like, I don't know, I want to send it out. And they were lying to him, saying they had sent it out when they hadn't. And this was all their little girly cabal to get back at him. Now, what had he done? What was his criminal act? Well, they thought that he hadn't quite shown enough respect to them. They wanted a bit more respect, and he hadn't quite shown enough. Had he actually done anything like, sort of held a gun to their head or called them names or something? Well, no, but, he should have crawled just that little bit harder. We're important people around here. We're deserving of respect. They're saying, what? You're kidding me. And so once I found out what was going on, I came down like a ton of bricks on them and broke up the cabal and hey, you guys will be looking for other jobs. You don't get to do this. But they sort of had the view that they were allowed to do it. They were quite right to do it. I was the troublemaker. I was the problem by stopping them from engaging in these girly, childish, obstructive behaviours. So this is the thing. Wherever I see, like some people say, well, look at Sheryl Sandberg, whatever her face is, with one of the, what is she the CEO of? I don't know, Google or whatever the fuck it is. One of the big, social media platforms. Now, clearly, she's a darling of the financial power elite who've just installed her. I mean, she's never achieved anything in life. And every interview she has a softball, and every interview she's able to say, "Yeah, girl power, you go, girl," and doesn't get challenged or questioned. But if I was interviewing her, she'd last 5 minutes. So, you're just affirmative action flunky. That's all you are. In my opinion. So just looking at this, I'm yet to find or come across an senior executive, female senior executive, who I'd regard as having earned the position. Now, not that I don't come across men who haven't earned it; they're just the right buddies in the financial services sector or so. Sure, you get that. In fact, I think it's worse now than it's ever been. But I have not found a single woman in the upper echelons. Now you could say at middle-level management or lower middle-level management. Sure, there's some competent women there, but outside of that, nah. Again in the upper echelons, it's hard to find any there. And I think affirmative action has ensured that CEOs who don't want to take any responsibility and accountability, who cry as soon as you ask them a difficult question or threaten to cry if they don't get their own way, they're the majority. They're the ones that are out there, not the ones who've got the credentials in building and creating things. You've been a task today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.